We've been celebrating Tandy, and in the process we've talked about the Model 1, the Network 2, the Model 3, and today we're going to take a diversion into the business side of things and cover the Model 12 for our final Tandy video right here on Vintage Geek. Just a quick reminder, if you like vintage technology, computers, and especially Tandy, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow, and I would encourage you to become a Vintage Geek member. You can do that on our website at vintagegeek.com. Back when Radio Shack released what would become known as the Model 1 in 1977, they really didn't have super high hopes for how many units would actually sell. After all, this was a brand new product, and the computer landscape was all kind of the wild frontier at the time, so nobody knew what to expect. One of the things that the higher-ups at Tandy really didn't expect was that it would be widely adopted for small business use. The list goes on of things that businesses really needed at the time that could be very much improved by using computers. And a lot of business owners saw the opportunity with something like the Model 1 as maybe a solution to that problem. The issue was that the Model 1 was really not designed for a business environment. It didn't have quite all of the features you would really need. So Radio Shack saw an opportunity here to kind of take their idea and move into the business side of life with their own business line of products. That's what officially created the TRS-80 Model 2. Now, the Model 2 was not a sequel at all of the Model 1. It was a completely different architecture. It did use the Z80 processor, but it used it at a 4 megahertz speed, which was considerably better than the Model 1 could do. It also had a lot better capabilities as far as RAM management, how it would handle memory and things like that, and it had a number of expansion capabilities as well. Now, as we've talked about before here on the channel when we talked about systems like the Centurion, back in the late 70s, most businesses on a larger scale were using things like mini computers, which were basically mainframes that were scaled down to a size that could be used in the business environment. Tandy had an interesting idea here in the sense that they were really using microcomputer technology with the sheer intent of putting it in the business environment. Tandy really took this very different design approach to their business line of computers, and as I've read, they only actually sold them through Tandy authorized resellers. And what I mean is, if you were an independent franchise operating a Radio Shack store, you could sell the Model 1 and you could sell the Model 3 later on, but you couldn't sell the Model 2 or its line of products unless you were actually owned by Radio Shack itself. So they were really trying to keep close ties on this and control the actual distribution of their product. It was a very high quality product. From everything I've read in the original reviews of the Model 2 system, using the 8-inch floppy disks proved to be fairly successful for Tandy. Those disks were able to carry more program data than the smaller disks used in the Model 1 and later Model 3, and they were able to do more with the video graphics display. There was a high resolution card you could get for the system that would allow some bitmapped graphics, and I believe you could go up to 640 by 240 as far as resolution, which was really good at the time for an early system. So I really wanted to kind of dive into this today, but I didn't want to go straight with the Model 2 because we've covered the early generation of these other systems. I want to go with the second generation of their business line, which was the Model 12, and that came out in 1982. That is what we have here today. And this is one monstrosity of a computer. It is a large form factor for sure. Essentially what they did is they took the features of the Model 2 system and they put in half-height disk drives so that you could have 2 disk drives in the main unit. They gave some more expansion capabilities, a little bit better memory management. They put everything that was in the keyboard and video section in the Model 2 and they put it all into one card to save space, and they came out with the Model 12. I want to get into it, kind of study its features, and I want to try using the Model 12. Now granted, the business line of Tandy computers was very much just that. They didn't really have games available per se. Let's get into it, the Model 12 right here on Vintage Geek. Now I'm a fan of pretty much all of the TRS-80 early designs. One of the things that stands out to me about the Model 12 versus the Model 2 is the fact that it is the white and black color scheme that Tandy seemed to put into effect around this time period. They were kind of doing a systematic design change of going away from that classic silver and black color scheme, moving to the white and black, and I really like the way that this looks overall. Now this does have a detachable keyboard, as the Model 2 did as well, and it connects with a DIN connector. It's a pretty well outfitted keyboard overall. You've got your full keyboard section on the left, you've got your white and black keys that make everything kind of stand out between some of the control and function keys versus the normal letters and numbers. One thing that they were proud of on the system is that it does have 8 function keys over in the number pad section, and they're kind of in a weird arrangement, to be honest. Instead of going across the top of the keyboard like you would normally see, they go in this kind of wrap around the corner shape over here here on the number pad, which is pretty interesting, but I guess it is functional. And it does have the full 10-key digit pad on the right-hand side of the keyboard. It also has 2 lock buttons for caps lock and some other control lock, I believe, that are illuminated with LEDs in the keys themselves. Looking at the actual physical hardware of the chassis, it does have the built-in green phosphor CRT. This was a change from the Model 2. The Model 2 actually had the white phosphor. One of the things that the Model 12 did that the 2 did not is that it gave you the capability of having 2 8-inch floppy drives in the main unit. They did this by using half-height disk drives on the right-hand side of the chassis. In the Model 2, you could only fit 1 drive in that bay. As I've been researching the Model 2 through Model 12 and then later 16 series, one of the complaints that some of the early users had was that the system is actually pretty noisy. And the reason why is because in the original design, the floppy disks would just spin all the time, whether there was a disk in them or not. There was no actual control mechanism for that. So the drive motors would be spinning at all times, and then that would create heat. So they actually put a cooling fan in the box itself, which would also run all the time. So by the time you had the disk drive spun up and the cooling fan operating inside the machine, it was kind of a noisy environment comparatively, especially when you look at things like the Model 1 and the Model 3, which really didn't have any moving parts, so they were pretty much silent on the desk. So that was definitely a change when it comes to the user experience. In the center of the front of the unit, there is a large illuminated power indicator, and there is a reset button as well, so you could actually reset the system right from the front panel, which is convenient. Seems like the reset functionality is important in all of the TRS-80 machines, as we found, so having that front and center is certainly handy. One thing I like about the design of the system as well is that they kind of have this little area where the keyboard can fit inside. So when you have it on a desktop, the keyboard can kind of slide into this area underneath the monitor. It's only a few inches, but it does make a difference in the overall desktop footprint, especially when you consider the overall size of this unit. Radio Shack did make a custom desk for the Model 2, 12, 16, and 6000. We actually do have one of those desks in the collection here at the Vintage Geek Museum, and one of these days we're going to be assembling that so we can see what it looks like with a Model 12 or a Model 2 on it. But they did do a lot of accessories like that for their business line of computers. It had a standard Centronics printer interface, which meant that it could be used with a lot of industry standard printers, even if they weren't Radio Shack. So they were definitely trying to super serve the business audience here and the business customer. Looking at the back of the Model 12, what they did between the Model 2 and the 12 is they consolidated a lot of the ports into one area on the back of the unit. So in this one square on the back, we basically have the ports for your printer, which was your Centronics interface, as well as 2 serial connections and a port for ArcNet, which is just a dummy plug on our system. I'm not sure if that was just an add-on. The rest of the ports very easy to access. Now, Radio Shack also had their internal peripherals that they would sell with the system. You could actually add up to, I believe, 2 or 3 additional floppy drives to the system. You could do one of the Radio Shack hard drive systems that were available at the time. Those all connected to the system using a ribbon cable through an expansion port. Now, to get to that expansion port, you had to take off the 2 thumb screws in the back and remove this panel that would actually give you access to that particular connector, as well as the internal card cage for expansion once you got past all of the additional metal and screws involved. I'm not going to dig that deeply today, but it is worth noting that there was quite a bit of expansion capability with the Model 12 system. Now that we've looked at all the hardware, I think it's time to power on this monstrosity and see what kind of software we can get to run on it. So I've got the Model 12 all set up and ready to go here. Let's power this machine on. It does have the power switch on the side of the unit, so let's flip the switch. I do like the nice large red power indicator on the front panel. Oh, it's got a blinking cursor in the middle of the screen. 64K memory, initializing. Okay, this is pretty cool. Now we've got the flashing cursor at the top left. Oh, look, TC logo. That's cool. TRS-80 Model 2, TRS-DOS version 2.0B, January 1st, 1982. One thing I noticed right off the bat here is that this does have a 4-digit year represented, which is different than the other machines we've studied. I'm really curious if we put in a 2023 date, what would happen here? Well, it didn't say no. I'm not going to enter the time. TRS-DOS ready. Since we don't have a lot of software for the Model 12, I want to spend just a brief amount of time just going through a very simple process in the system, which is just backing up the DOS disk. We would normally be able to do this with the 2 drives, but according to Justin, our tech, the second drive is not working. I don't think it's actually spinning up right now. So we'll have to do this via the single drive process, which they actually have in the Model 12 manual, which thankfully we have. We can follow that procedure very quickly with a brand new floppy disk so we can make a clean copy of the DOS disk. Let's give that a try. So it says in the book that at the ready prompt, you would type format 0, which is then going to ask us to put in a new disk. So mount disk to format on 0. Let's go ahead and grab it blank. So I've got a fresh blank 8-inch disk here that we're going to try to put in so we can format this. And we should be able to hit yes on continue. Diskette is write protected. That means I might have to take something off of this. Take a look. I don't see any kind of tab on it. I'm just going to say yes. Interesting. This should be the notch for the write protection, so I'm not sure why it thinks that it is. I'm just going to try a different disk. It's weird. It seems to think that every disk is write protected. Maybe you actually have to cover the tab? So the drive activity light is functioning, and it got past the write protected stage, so me putting the piece of tape over the disk did fix that issue. Oh, here we go. Formatting track 1, track 2. It's verifying the sectors. Great. So we're now formatting one of our 8-inch disks, getting it ready for a backup copy of TRS-DOS. 0 flawed tracks. Excellent. Now the system tracks are being written to the diskette. Just a side note, but the actual noise of the system doesn't really bother me as much as I thought. You can definitely hear the cooling fan, you can hear the drive spinning, but it's a mild sound. It's not like, you know, a jet engine taking off or anything like that. Now maybe the Model 2 was more noisy. Maybe this is kind of the refined version, but I don't really find it that distracting. All right, now it wants the system disk again. Take our new disk out, put the system disk back in. All right, now we're back at the prompt. Now, according to the book, now it wants us to do backup 0 to 0. Source diskette ready? Yes. I like how all the prompts are either yes or Q, which I assume means quit. If you don't say yes, you're just quitting the function, which I guess makes sense. So we got the source disk in. It's reading the boot track, the system file, it looks like. Okay, put in the destination disk. Now I have to presume that it's going to write that information to the second disk. Change diskette information. The book says to say no. Have to presume it's doing something here. There's no actual status message on screen. Okay, now we're back to the source disk, so I guess that must have worked. Oh, so now it's giving us a list of the files it's copying. Looks like this time around it got 6 different files. As far as the actual command system and everything so far, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I do like the fact that it gives you some basic status information as you're going, and certainly the text looks good on screen. The green phosphor, I could see where they did that. Makes it a little bit easier to look at, probably over periods of time, than the actual white on black. I do wish that it would actually show you which files are being written to the destination disk, rather than just kind of sitting there without status. Now we got terminal, mem test, basic, system 32. It's actually kind of funny to see system 32 on a system like this when we use system 32 as a directory in Windows and modern machines. That one doesn't sound quite as healthy. Okay. I imagine this process would be much better with both drives available. Quite a few files on this one. These must be smaller files. Of course, I have no idea what all of these files are. I'd have to go through the actual TRS-DOS reference manual to learn more about them. Looks like we do have the basic interpreter on this particular disk. We've got a lot of command files. Looks like right now it's writing the directory track, so that means we must have finished all the files themselves, which is great. And backup complete. Okay, great. So theoretically, now we've made an entire copy of our original master disk of TRS-DOS and the basic interpreter, which means that if we reset the system, it should allow us to boot from this new disk that we've created. So let's give that a try. Back to the flashing cursor. Looks like kind of the same boot up process to me. This is a good sign. Okay, and there we go. We're back to the date entry screen, which will accept 2023 as the date. All right, well, I've made my first official backup copy of an 8-inch floppy disk, so I feel very accomplished today. Okay, we're going back into basic. Let's do new on the basic side, and let's just put in a simple program here. And let's see if we can run it. Hey, there you go. Welcome to Vintage Geek. I'm the Model 12. I may take up a lot of desk space, but I'm here to do business. See, I've done something with this computer today. I can rest assured that things are happening with our Model 12. In all seriousness, it seems like it's a decent machine. We just don't have a working piece of software for it other than the TRS-DOS disk at the moment, but I'm sure that we do have more in our archive collection for the museum. We have a lot of binders that we haven't gone through yet. If any of you out there know a great application for the Model 12 that kind of shows off its capabilities, I'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of you out there are experts on this line of computers, and since I've never used one before, I really don't know much about it, but it does seem like a very powerful machine and certainly something that would have been beneficial to the small business community back when it came out in 1979. Thanks for spending Tandy with us. It's been a lot of fun looking at some of these classic machines. If you like vintage technology, vintage computers, and especially Radio Shack products, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow, and I encourage you to consider becoming a Vintage Geek member. As a member, you have access to a lot of extra content and features, some of the code snippets we have here on the show, discounts on museum admission. You can find out all the information on that and more at vintagegeek.com. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek. Oh.
You all right?
Yeah, got caught in the wire.
Uh-oh.
You still got me?
Yeah.
Okay.